Hi, everyone. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Cleveland Heights City Council Housing and Building Committee at 5:06 p.m. on Tuesday, January 26th. I'll now call the roll. Jim Petrus here, Councilwoman Larson.
Here.
And Councilman Maddox. And Councilman Maddox may join us a little later. We also have in the room Councilman Craig Cobb. So today we're joined by members of the local real estate community who are going to talk with us about housing here in Cleveland Heights. Look forward to listening and learning. As a reminder, we have a presentation on Tuesday, February 11th from local housing advocates. As I've said before, any information that's presented in either of these meetings should not be viewed as a sign that this committee or the council generally is pursuing any particular legislation. But before they begin their presentation, let's go ahead and start with some introductions. So again, my name is Jim Petrus. I'm the chair of this committee and a member of the Cleveland Heights City Council.
Gail Larson, vice chair of this committee and member of council.
Would you like to start? Would you like to go next?
Oh, I'd be happy to. I'm Helen Hertz, and I'm a Cleveland Heights resident, and I am a retired realtor with my license at RE/MAX at their referral office. And if you would go around the table and tell everybody who you are, where you live, and where you, what your company is.
I am Jody Friedel. I am the office manager of the RE/MAX Crossroads office on Lee Road in Cleveland Heights.
I'm Paul Morris. I'm a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway. I've been licensed for 8 years. I live in Cleveland Heights, and a few moons ago, I graduated from Cleveland Heights High School.
I didn't know that. I am Tom Hotchkiss Lilly. I'm a realtor and an attorney with Howard Hanna. I also graduated from Heights High and lived here my whole life.
I'm Jen Davis. I'm with RE/MAX Crossroads on Lee Road. Jody's my manager. I'm also a resident of Cleveland Heights.
Debbie Ritchie. I am with Keller Williams. I am a resident of Cleveland Heights, actually in the Noble neighborhood.
I'm Katie Bastian with Berkshire Hathaway. I am actually a resident of Westlake, but I do a lot of work out in Cleveland Heights, as well as have clients out here and completely appreciate the city and all of its architecture, so.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining us. And now I'd like to turn it over to Helen Hertz so that she could begin the presentation, which is the first and only thing on today's agenda.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm glad to see a lot of other people here. We all came together because we do a lot of business in Cleveland Heights and or live here in Cleveland Heights. And we recognize that our housing stock is our greatest asset. And we also recognize that we have to take care of what we've got and keep it strong and safe, attractive, in order to bring in more buyers who might want to live here for the lifestyle that Cleveland Heights offers. And so we were looking at ways to make our housing stock more attractive and to be able to have buyers who want to buy our homes, especially those that have sellers who have lived in the property maybe a long time, are older now, have retirement income, maybe a medical problem, a loss of income, whatever, and now they're ready to move on, and they're going to sell their house, and then they have a point of sale inspection, and they have violations, and they've asked the buyer to take the point of sale violations. So we have two issues that we've been dealing with as a realtor group. We have houses that have violations, and we have buyers who want to buy here who have some obstacles. So we came together and we put our heads together and we came up with some recommendations that we hope you'll consider, because we think that this is the best place to live, and keeping our housing strong is one of the best things that we can do for ourselves. So to start with that, I'm sorry President Kuda isn't here because he wrote a nice article about how important our housing stock is. And so you can tell him I was going to talk about him. So let me just start with saying we have systematic exterior inspections. Right now they're on a 5-year cycle. And if you have lived here a long time, you know, and you have a house that needs to be painted, it usually needs to be painted before 5 years. If you have masonry work that needs to be done or you have a host of things that need to be done, and you're trying to keep the lights on in your house, heat in your house, food on the table, what you're not doing is painting your house and maybe fixing that front porch that needs to be rebuilt or some of the other things. So those houses are not getting inspected only every 5 years. So as a Realtor group, we thought we should look at the systematic exterior inspections and reduce that time from a 5-year cycle to a 3-year cycle. And take care of what we've got for the people who are already here. And I think that we have 2 people in the audience who wrote a column about taking care of what we've got over here. Take care of what you got, fix the potholes, take care of the housing, take care of all the things that we are concerned about to keep the people who are here happy and safe and to make it attractive for people who want to come and live here. So we addressed at first the systematic inspections. And I just want to find my notes. And I hope I have them. I do, I think. Not right there. Well, I can tell you, there they are. Okay, so we're recommending that we look at the 5-year cycle and reduce it to 3 years. And that's because symptoms usually start on the outside. And the outside affects all the houses on the block, on the street, and it gives an attitude about the kind of housing and how we maintain our housing in our city. So that's one of the things that we're recommending, the systematically reduced to a 3-year cycle. And I think you said that they do a 2-year cycle in
Rocky River, they do a 2-year cycle on investment properties.
on investment properties. Well, 2 years maybe is a good thing for investment properties. So, I mean, I think we should look at everything that will help keep our housing stock strong. And so, what I've said is the most recent systematic inspections were done in the Noble area. Now, I know that there are several people here who have done house by house in Noble a few years ago and presented a report to the city. But the city did a total systematic exterior inspection in the Noble area, and they listed all the streets on the website. And I don't know if you remember seeing it. I'll pay attention to stuff like this because I want to know what's going on in Noble. The Noble Oxford area, where it's where I first lived, and it's a lot different than when I moved here in 1974. And I know there's at least one other person I'm looking at that knows what I'm talking about. So now the city has the Noble inspection from 2022. That's the systematic exterior. So they must have a list of all the houses that need work on the outside because that's how they inspect. And we also then just had a report done by the Western Reserve Land Institute. They did a survey of our community in South Euclid and Euclid, and they looked at all the exteriors of every property in Cleveland Heights and also in the other 2 communities. So now we've got all this data. And so we would like, and we're talking about having the city and HRRC be much more proactive in reaching out to those homeowners with this through the systematic inspections that have outstanding violations and giving them the tools to help them fix their houses. And I will tell you, I did not know this, but our Housing Preservation Office has a brochure. And I was really surprised. I didn't fold them, and you can look at them. Does everybody want to see them? You just pass them out. So what it does is it lists all the programs that can assist existing homeowners. It's called the Home Programs for Maintenance and Repair. And so, oh yeah. You're gonna have to get me some more, for me.
Okay.
Okay, So it lists all the programs. So it's got the home repair program, it's got the senior home repair program, the Lead Safe Cuyahoga County, the deferred loan, no interest loans. And it gives how to reach out and find out whether you qualify or not. And then it's on the back side of it, it's got, I see people folding it. It's not a brochure unless you fold it. Okay, all right. And then on the back, you see it's got income limits. So people need to know, thank you. People need to know that these things are available. So what we've discovered is, this is sitting at City Hall, but it's not going into the envelope of the report that goes out to the homeowner. Well, if you've ever seen, have any of you seen a systematic inspection recently? Or a point of sale?
I have one
Besides the
this morning.
Okay, well, if you wanna see one, I will find one, because I've got one here. So the report is given, and if there are any outstanding violations, they're all noted. And then on the back, on the very end of the commentary by the city, it's got two little paragraphs that say, individuals with financial difficulties are urged to consider various housing repair programs. It talks about calling the city's housing preservation office, and then it also talks about the home repair resource center. Well, you know what the people are looking at? They're looking at the violations. They don't read all this stuff. And so we thought that what we should encourage the city to do is to include this brochure. And I made a very primitive postcard that should go on maybe a colored little insert at the, in front of the inspection report that says, need help correcting violations, call the city's housing preservation officer, the home repair resource center, and have that so they can put it on their refrigerator and know who to call. Because I think part of our problem is not everybody uses the internet. I think some of our older people don't, unless they've got grandkids and they FaceTime. They don't go to websites, they're not on the internet, they're not on social media, not the way the younger people are. So I think we don't know who these people are, but I think we should assume that we've got to help them get the resources. So that's one way to do it. And it's, I think it's a good way to do it. Did you see that? Did you know that?
That it's listed near the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it makes a lot of sense that if you have programs that are available to folks that they might be able to benefit from, that you want this information to be conspicuous. You don't want them to have to dig through their report. The information may be there, but if you can, make it more clear to them, then it seems like more people would research it and take advantage of it. So
Yeah.
it seems like that could be beneficial.
And then I'm trying to think if I got this from Lori Sanford or if I took it off the web. I think Lori sent it to me. This is a chart. And it lists zero interest loan, deferred loan, senior repair, home repair grant, exterior violation repair grant, lead safe, Cuyahoga down payment assistance program. Well, if nobody knows about it, who's going to use it? I mean, I think that's our biggest problem. We've got some really good programs. We've got some really good people, that will help and sit down with people and work out these things. But I think the biggest problem is if they don't know about it, who are they gonna call? Who are they gonna call? So we've got that. And then I talked to Keisha Allen from, and I want to tell you, Lori told me, I was shocked. They put a roof on a house, free, I think it was in the Noble area, a roof. Now, I don't know how much they spent. She didn't give me a dollar amount, but they actually re-roofed a house for a family. Well, I'm sure everybody would line up for that one. That's a great grant. I don't know how they qualified. Only they knew in order to work with them to get that done. I thought that was terrific, and I was happily shocked that they could do that.
So you don't think it fell within the parameters of any of these listed programs, that it was something different where that?
No, I think it might have, but I just don't know which one. She didn't tell me which one. I mean, we didn't talk about how they fit that one in. So then I talked to Keisha Allen. Keisha Allen is one terrific gal. I mean, she is like amazing. And she's got some great programs. So they've got this kind of thing, you know, low interest loan programs, technical assistance, all this stuff. And she referred me to First National Bank. And First National Bank has programs, colorful flyers, you know, that would get everybody's attention. And what they do is they do portfolio loans. Now, portfolio loans are different than other loans because they don't sell them on the secondary market. So they can make some determinations on their own as to whether they're going to keep the loan and have their own program. And this gal, Karen Polk, whom I spoke to, sent me these flyers. This one is now get up to $5,000 in closing cost assistance. This is for rehabilitation program. $5,000 in closing cost assistance for a home ownership program. This one blew my mind. 100% financing available up to $766,550 for the First National Bank Home Ownership Plus program. Well, okay, so, you know, realtors working with buyers need to know about these programs because if they're portfolioed and they want to buy a property in Cleveland Heights and they've got outstanding violations, maybe this is the way to go because, you know, for years, the only program we had available was the FHA 203K purchase rehab program. Do you have a question?
I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, you're not yet. Okay, all right, so we have these. So I started thinking about, and we talked about it. You know, we all could call our lenders and find out what they got.
First Feller of Lakewood does portfolio loans and has some programs as well.
Well, I've heard that. I know that Third Federal doesn't, and I don't know how this fits in with the CRA Act, the Community Reinvestment Act, in the banking business. Maybe we could investigate that a little bit more. They used to be important for banks to make certain loans to minorities and low mod income.
Yeah, I was gonna comment, Helen, recently, two lenders that I work with regularly, one from Chase Bank. They have a program and it goes by the zip code. It has nothing to do with the buyer, but it's a program where through a federal, one of the federal bureaus, they wanna Chase, since they're one of the two big to fail banks, to document that they're making home mortgage loans
Yep.
available to a broad cross range of the public, even in lower and moderate income neighborhoods. So I talk to my lender at Chase, I give her the address and she'll tell me if that home is in an area by its zip code and location where there is grant money, they refer to it, to help with closing costs or down payments for people making a loan. So doing your borrowing through Chase, you may be able to get $5,000 towards the purchase of a home based on the neighborhood where the home is. Huntington Bank recently, the lender I work with there, they have a similar thing, and it does have to do with the demographics of the neighborhood as they're reported. But these are ways to help us make home ownership affordable in lower and moderate income neighborhoods and help keep up some of the neighborhoods that sometimes are the most challenging to get the houses sold.
Okay, so Paul called Chase. Everybody has to call their bank.
Were those income qualified loans or was it just
They
by
were
the zip
not
code?
income qualified. They still, the borrower would still go through the same process of documenting it, but if they can be approved for the loan, Chase and Huntington and some of the banks have through a federal program, grant money can be made available to help that buyer with their down payment, with their closing costs up to $5,000 sometimes, which can be significant for a moderate income individual who's really struggling to be able to own rather than rent.
Thank you.
Plus, the city of Cleveland Heights had up to $10,000 they were on first time home buyer. Through
Is there an
home
income
repair-
restriction?
Through home repair resource.
it's on the
There's one I'm
chart.
gonna bring up quickly. There's a program called Circle Living. We're so proximate to University Circle, and for some reason Cleveland Heights doesn't participate. Although Little Italy and some of the Shaker areas near Shaker Square and Buckeye do participate. I don't know if that's
The
something.
city of Cleveland address.
That's
What's
it.
that?
It's gotta have a city of Cleveland address.
That's
Yeah.
Well, that is, that program of loan forgiveness, as they call it, is made available to people who are employees at University Circle, University Hospital, Case, some of the museums or other institutes there. It's to encourage them to live near to where they work.
I wish they would expand it, but they don't, because I've done the program and people can get up to $30,000 of free money and they have to live in the house for 5 years. It'd be great if we could do something like that in Cleveland Heights, because it means somebody's gonna live in the house for 5 years, and keep up the neighborhood and everything, but I don't know.
Council might revisit that because the city has tried before, 4 or 5 years, so.
Invite them back to the table and for a conversation.
Well,
Yeah.
I think everything should be open for discussion because we want buyers to be able to buy here. And we want people who are here to be able to keep their houses up, and to be in safe, attractive neighborhoods. There's nothing worse than, having a buyer who's relocating, maybe coming to one of the hospitals. And, you're driving around and there's a house that they've been, price-wise pre-approved for it. And you drive up and next door or 2 doors away, the house looks like, it's gonna fall apart. And it's on, and you can see it's on the systematic, it's not being inspected because it's not being sold. And it's on the systematic 5-year cycle, so it could sit there and then the homeowner's got a year to get things fixed before the city comes back and re-inspects. I mean, it could be 6, even 7 years before that house ever gets taken care of. Well, that's not healthy that's not a healthy, happy environment for the people who live here.
Just one more thing to add, because I didn't say anything at the beginning of the meeting about limiting comments to the committee members, I'm gonna call on Rhonda, but then if we could go back to the presentation.
Thank you.
I'll make this quick. Helen, I just wanted to ask if some of what you were concerned about was ways that we could share this information with the community, whether it's through Focus Magazine or Heights Observer and the Cleveland Heights E-News. You're thinking of, since we don't have community relations anymore, our department here, then maybe those other, we could take notes on how we could share through the sources that we already have.
Well,
Council.
actually, on my agenda, there is a marketing plan.
Okay,
Okay,
you're the
but it's
best.
at the end.
Yes,
okay.
great.
Yes, but you're absolutely right. If nobody knows about it and nobody's reaching out to the people that might benefit from it,
Right.
what good is it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All right,
So just one thing to note, it is 5:30 now, and unfortunately, there is another meeting at 6, so we have another
Oh,
half hour just
okay.
to keep us on track.
Well, I think you've gotten the gist of, we're trying to make good, positive recommendations that will help us all. Not only the Realtor community, but the people who live here and the people who want to live here. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about no escrow for owner-occupied homes that have had a point of sale. And so we have a buyer that finds a house that they like and they're pre-approved for that amount of money. Or they look at a house that's got and it's got outside, it's got exterior, it has point of sale violations. And the seller wants the buyer to assume them. And now, so the city has established an escrow. And somebody has to come up with that money. Well, now the buyer, this may be a first-time buyer, so they're putting together their down payment money, their closing cost money. They have to pay their first year's homeowner's insurance upfront. They have a private inspection. If they're working with a realtor, I don't imagine any realtor at this table, in our environment that doesn't recommend a private home inspection. Okay, that is another $300 or more.
Now.
Right.
The
Closer
bigger
to
the house.
500,
Closer to
depends
5
on
now.
the size of the house.
Okay,
Yeah.
but depending on the size of the house. And now, with new changes in the NAR rules, some of the buyers are gonna have to pay their agents. So now, they've been scrimping together their little down payment of 3.5%, but look at all the other money that they need to have. Closing costs, inspections, insurance, and maybe pay their agent. So, we're talking about maybe getting rid of the escrow. And so, because, and the theory is, because so many buyers, and I would estimate, except for, COVID was an exception, and I think, Jen and others can talk about how they wrote in the contract. The buyer still could have an inspection, but it would be for information only. I mean, it was crazy when, I remember one realtor at one of our ledge meetings saying that she had 70 some odd offers on one property. I said, what'd you do with them? She said, I put them all around my dining room table. Anyway, but the buyer does have a private inspection. And that we also have a 6-page property disclosure that every seller has to fill out unless it's in an estate. And then the trustee is given it, and if they've never lived in the property, they've got an exemption. So now the buyer is on alert. They've got their private inspection report with pictures and details of defects. They've got a property disclosure filled out by the seller if it's occupied by a seller of any known defects. Now, remember, people live with a lot of things that they don't know are defects, especially older people. They just get used to it and they don't fix stuff, but so they may not report it, but there is a way, if they do know something, to give that information to the buyer. And so when they have the private inspection, they can get all the detail from the private inspector with pictures and details, and they can call contractors and get estimates and see if it makes sense for them, because financially it may not make sense. If you've got too many dollars, and this is today's costs. Materials have gone up and labor has gone up. So, but they have a lot of information, and they're either going to be able to buy it or not. But if they can't buy it, usually what happens is the investors buy it. And we know we've got 41% of our population here are renters or investor-owned properties. And we know that not all investors are equal. I'm an investor. I think I'm an excellent investor because I live here and I love this community, but not all people are like me. And so I think that we need to we need to give this information to the buyer for them to make a good decision, and we need to give the help to the seller at the same time. So now we've got some things that can help offset the lack of an escrow requirement in our point of sale, our existing point of sale. Also, we talked about the sidewalk and apron repair program that Shaker and several other communities have. And I think, Gail, you told me that Lyndhurst does it. And Olmsted Falls does it?
North Homestead.
North Olmsted.
Westlake does it.
And Westlake does it too. So what they do is the city has, in their inspections, they go out and they look at the sidewalks and aprons. And they've got a contractor that works with them. And they also work with the city forester department. And what happens is, most of our sidewalk problems and our apron problems come from our big trees. And we are the city of trees, so we've got a lot of trees on our tree lawns that create problems for our sidewalks. So we were thinking that maybe we should be looking at the sidewalk program like what Shaker has, because they come out and they look at it. They've got a contractor that will fix it. They sweep an area, so they're looking at multiple ones, so they can get good pricing and good timetable to get those fixed. And they can send that cost to the homeowner. If the homeowner wants to pay for it, they will pay for it. If they want the city to do it and they don't want to pay for it, the city can put it on their property tax. Okay, now it's done. Now it's off the point of sale list. I mean, sidewalk blocks, we found some of them cost up to $1,000. So you got two of those, guys.
Just to be clear, if your hypothetical, if the city were doing the repairs and billing the homeowner, and the homeowner can opt to pay it up front if they don't wanna pay it up front. The other option you said, put it on their property tax. The homeowner is still paying it, but just in a
Yeah.
different format
Exactly.
and at a different
Like
time.
an installment program.
Yes, and it's taken care of. That's the thing, it's taken care of, it's taken off the list. So we, you know,
It's taken care of at the same time, so it ages the same way.
Yep.
Theoretically, you get on another systematic inspection cycle.
true. You know
What
what?
you're saying is this is just another way to get that done.
Exactly,
And to get it done more effectively for all, and hopefully at a lower cost to the homeowner because you're doing it in volume. And
The thing is, like my street association is still active after 52 years. So if we had a systematic inspection and there were 10 houses that needed sidewalks to be fixed, we would go on the blast email and say, who needs this done? We would get some prices, we would get one contractor to come out and give us a bid for 10. We would get better service, we would get better pricing, and we'd be done. But not all neighborhoods have an active block club, so they may need help from the city. So we're thinking that maybe this is a way to do this, and it's an efficient way. The other thing, when I talked to Shaker, what I liked about it is they bring in the forester. Now, I have a son who's a forester, so I'm very sensitive to this, but they look at what is creating the problem for the sidewalk. And instead of, some of these contractors, these contract guys, they come out and they chop out the roots and stuff, and they could damage the tree. But the city forester comes out and knows what to do. And sometimes they pour the concrete around the tree, and sometimes they narrow the sidewalk block so it doesn't get bumped by the roots or whatever. So I like that program, and if we could work, with our city inspections and our forestry department, we would get the same, maybe good results. Okay, all right, so that's that. And then I wanna talk to you about no point of sale. Now, Lakewood doesn't do point of sale. Anymore. And I have data that I'm gonna leave for the committee, Lakewood and Cleveland Heights, where you can compare, because we're about the same size, we're the same age. And I think the most remarkable thing that I found here was Cleveland Heights has a lot more older people. They give demographics. We have a lot more older people, over
Than Lakewood.
65, yeah. So I'm gonna leave that with you. And what I've done is I've highlighted things that I think you should pay attention to, because they are having shorter market time and higher prices for their houses. And without the point of sale and the required escrow, they're selling their houses to more buyers who are going to occupy the properties. And I think we should really consider that. It's not like the houses aren't getting inspected. The home buyers working with realtors get a private inspection, so they know what they're getting. And they're getting pictures and descriptions that are much more helpful than the city's list. And so we're recommending that we take a look at eliminating point of sale and having some serious conversation with Lakewood officials and to see if they're happy with their system. Because if they're happy and we are the same age, same age, same population, same distance from Center City, that maybe we should be copycats. Okay.
What about investor purchases?
Investor purchases, that's a whole nother ballgame. In Lakewood, they inspect them inside and outside. And they haven't stopped that, and we shouldn't either.
Correct.
We're not saying that investors, because not all investors are equal.
I grew up in Lakewood, and at one point there was so many doubles the city and investment properties the city was paying. They were paying people to convert their houses to single homes when I was a kid, which there's still a ton of investment properties, but it was getting out of control.
I just will tell you one thing that I noted about selling in Lakewood and knowing Lakewood. They have a lot of multis with no garages. And they allow that, and we don't. Do you know how much a garage costs to build today?
At least 20, at least
Do you
25.
know how old our garages are in Cleveland Heights? They're as old as the houses, and our median age of our houses is 91 years old. That's an old garage. And the car doesn't care if it's got a cracked floor. And let me tell you how hard it is to replace a floor. We used to have people that came out and jacked up the garage and jackhammered out the floor, and poured a new floor on sill plates, and then set the garage back down. Well, those people are old now too, and they're gone. So, anyway, so we were talking about no point of sale.
Can I add on that real quick, the investor part real quick?
Yeah.
And also being able to focus the limited resources we do have on some of those investors. Like, we're spreading out all of our resources, inspecting every single house, including these owner occupieds. We don't have as many resources in general. So we can take the resources that we have and actually follow up with these investors, because they'll buy properties, they'll assume point of sale, then they never fix it. Nobody ever, and maybe we could better use the resources that we have. Because I think sometimes the housing inspector's time or city's time is kind of wasted when they're inspecting an $800,000 house that's in perfect mint condition. What are they doing there even, versus their time could be spent on an investor property with actual electrical problems and rodents and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's just kind of because I know people are scared of the idea of no point of sale, but I think we're sometimes enforcing it in the wrong places and not enforcing it enough in the right places, like the investors.
Very good point, Jen. Thank you.
Can I also add
Yeah.
with the city of Lakewood, they have eliminated the point of sale on the sale of each house, but they have taken it and gone through quadrants of inspecting it. Every year there's a new quadrant. And so it's not like they're not doing any inspections on the houses, they are. But it's, every year is a different quadrant, which is great because it's still keeping up that exterior and the stock of the houses.
Is that considered a systematic exterior?
Yes, so
Okay.
that's why.
Systematic exterior
Yeah.
only.
Right,
Okay.
right, but they're doing it on, this basis, then this one, then and the owners know that it's their year to do it, so if we could, somehow incorporate that into the Heights area and get certain areas each year.
Well, and enforcing that
And
again,
enforce it,
cause I know
yeah.
people with point of sale violations that are like 7 years old, the city just doesn't show up, they don't care,
Yeah.
Well, how the housing office is run is
Right, whole different
another
subject,
thing. It's
yeah.
a whole nother subject. Okay, now we're gonna get to the fun stuff about marketing what we've got, because we want to offer help to the owner who is occupying the property and has these exterior violations. They're not selling their property, so there's no interior inspection by the city. Okay, we wanna help the buyer who's trying to buy one of our cute little houses, especially in the Noble area, where they're, really the starter houses. I remember when I was on the planning commission, they said 65% of our houses are starter. And the middle of our city is kind of a 20% of the next step up. And then the rest of the houses are in the high-end area in the south end of town. Well, the south end of town, they take care of their stuff, they remodel, they update. The middle of the city, around Cedar Lee and those neighborhoods, they pretty much take up care of theirs. But up in north, I think they're more limited. And if you look at the census tracts, our community, our incentive program for our I am just totally blanking.
Reinvestment Act?
Our CRA. Yeah. That, they're designated census tracts. And so that's in the Noble area. And they get a higher percentage if they do rehabs and whatever, as opposed to down in the south end of the town. So it's a very complicated CRA too, by the way, just so you know. But anyway, to move on to marketing though, if we could send out this brochure, if we could send out information about the Home Repair Resource Center and use a postcard, and I'm serious about, they'll put it on their refrigerator and they'll call. And if the city could monitor who has the most grievous of the exterior inspections, items, the violations on the inspections, they can focus on those and make set up an appointment and go get them and help them. If they don't wanna be helped, we do have a court system. So, that's one thing, but we're talking about positive things in terms of what we could do. So we're talking about marketing our existing programs through the city's housing preservation program, and then also through the Home Repair Resource Center. And we've got a lot of places we can advertise. To Rhonda's point, we've got the Observer, we've got the city's newsletter, we've got the Jewish News, the Sun newspaper.
It's next door.
We have Nextdoor. If people are on social media, I think we just have to generate a list of where we should be reaching out. Maybe the president of council could give a report and just remind people we're coming into the spring market, and they'll be starting the systematic exterior inspections again. And they don't do them when it's snow covered because you can't see anything. So they'll be starting when the weather changes, and those people should be on alert. And those who are left over from, I don't know what they've done with the 2022 Noble people, if they've done any follow-up. I mean, we're coming into the third year, and those people could still have outstanding violations. So we need to know where they are because they may need help. And now we've got the Western Reserve survey, and we should take all this data. I mean, what good does it do to have all this data if we're not using it? And we've got the data. Although I see one person that's found some problems with our Western Reserve survey sitting over there. And
More than one.
so and we could verify that. Anyway, the other thing is, I was a realtor for years. I didn't even know we had this brochure. Or I would have shared it with people. You can share it with your family, your friends, your neighbors.
Educating realtors.
Educating realtors, and then
In an example, I shared it, I had a client who they bought an electric vehicle at the very end of the year, and they turned to me and they said, well, you must know good electrical contractors. These are people who are homeowners for decades over on Edge Hill. They said, we want to find out how to put an electrical vehicle charger in our garage, and we're probably gonna have to upgrade. And so besides giving them the name of electrical contractors who are registered with City of Cleveland Heights, I found that and I said, well, you're retired now, and if you need, assistance, here's some programs that may be able, and so there, that's an example of how all of us, there's so many opportunities to disseminate and share this with people, and then every time we share it, we're trying to make it affordable and encourage people to invest in upgrading their homes.
good for you. I'm glad you did that. And those are things that realtors do. And we try to help our clients not only find the right community, but to find the right house in the community, and then to help them with whatever they need help with. How many times I bet every single one of you has gotten a call from a past client asking, do you have somebody that can do this? Do you have somebody that can do that? They rely on us to be able to give them referrals for contractors and all kinds of things. You have no idea.
Also, in this market with the interest rates that they are nowadays, if there's a point of sale escrow amount, and then what they would have normally brought to a down payment at a lower interest rate, they're now using, because of the interest rate, they have to bring it, to the table instead of putting it in escrow. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for them to buy a house in a community where there's an escrowed amount required. I mean,
They can buy in South Euclid versus
I
Cleveland.
had to go to South Euclid with, I hate to say it, my own son, because he couldn't put the money for all the escrow accounts for every single house we saw here. He wanted the Heights bad. And he went over the border because of it. I'm sorry.
Actually, to piggyback off of that,
He had to.
there's so many more people going who can actually afford to go conventional, but they're getting such a better interest rate by going FHA. And so that also, there's extra stipulations when you're doing an FHA loan because they do their own inspection when they do the appraisal. And so again, if houses are more kept up, then you're gonna have less people having issues getting loans at better interest rates,
Well,
which is gonna make more affordable housing for people like your son, maybe, he could have, it
He could have
just.
stayed into the heights where he wanted to be.
Right.
well, and I also think the escrows trip up the FHA loans sometimes. Sometimes the banks won't allow them to escrow money. The
That's
bank
right.
says, we won't let you do this, you can't buy this house.
Well, if it's safety issues, that's the biggie.
Right.
I actually forgot to tell you that not only is there a private inspection usually done when a buyer's buying a house, if they're getting a mortgage, the appraiser comes out. And then they're getting.
The lender sends an appraiser.
Yes, the lender sends the appraiser. Okay, so they're looking around too, and make no mistake, they pay close attention to the older houses. Then the insurance guy comes out, or the insurance gal comes out and says, oh my God, you've got a Federal Pacific Electric box.
Oh my
We're not
God, look at all
going to
the
insure
knob and
you.
tube
Or
wire.
any active knob and
Do
tube.
we know what that is?
My
That's
God,
not
the
made
roof is
anymore.
10 years old.
Okay, all right, so now you've had your private guy, your appraiser, your insurance person, you've had multiple people looking at the property. Do we really need the city to come and do their own interior inspection? Outside is far more important because it has greater impact on the whole neighborhood in the city.
Helen, I would disagree with you a tad because in the houses in my neighborhood that have sold, the inside infrastructure needs to be evaluated. The furnace, the water tank, the things that, the foundation. So in my mind, they're equally as important, even though I know the exterior is the visible part, but the interior infrastructure is extremely important.
Which does get done with a private home inspection, the
that's done.
appraiser.
I'm not saying it doesn't, but I don't wanna put
Oh,
more
no,
on
I
exterior.
make no mistake, and the private guys, remember, they're licensed by the state, they've got liability, if they miss something, they're liable for it.
Yeah.
But they take off the fronts of the furnaces, they take off the covers of the electric boxes.
Yeah,
They use moisture meters and they have plumbs, they're not called plumbs, what are they called? For levels, thank you, on the basement walls to see if they're, if they're
I
moving.
just had one today, that's why.
They know how to inspect a roof and, yes.
And the
So-
city's in and out, like 15, 20 minutes, you guys. I mean, they're not at these properties long. They're looking for specific things. They're not taking off. Well, sometimes they're there longer, but sometimes they're in and out 15 minutes.
Safe bill.
Well, now we,
If I could say one thing about that, when we bought our house, okay, we had an inspector, came out and was one of the most highly recommended of all the inspectors.
I heard you say this before.
And they did the whole thing and they said on the third floor of the bathroom, the water was shut off because it's cold up there and so forth, so, okay, fine. But they hadn't done the point of sale, and I said, well, I'm not closing until I get a point of sale. And so I got a point of sale, and guess what? It wasn't shut off, there were no pipes going, someone had cut the pipes off to the third floor, there's no water going up there.
Did you still buy that house?
I told them that I would accept the violations, but I was gonna pay them about $100,000 less.
There you go.
But yeah,
But they wouldn't have, the other inspector did not catch it, only our city inspector did.
Well, you are,
What year was that?
Lucky.
2016.
Wow.
Surprisingly.
I remember you saying that at a meeting that we had when Tanisha was here. I remember you saying that. Nobody's perfect. I don't think there's anybody perfect in this room, although I think some of you probably think you are, but anyway, I just would like you all to know that we would like to make it easier for homeowners to stay here and have things fixed and buyers to come here and buy. And we want our city that we live in and love to be staying strong and attractive and affordable. So I think that pretty much concludes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We have just a couple minutes left, and so I'd like to ask Councilwoman Larson if she happens to have any other questions.
Not about the presentation.
Okay, and I guess for the folks who joined us today, do you happen to have any other information that you'd like to share with us? Any closing thoughts? If not, that's okay.
Maybe anyone else?
Just to the folks here at the table for right now. No, okay, and so afterwards, we have a couple more minutes before the start of the next meeting, so I will be here and I'm happy to talk with anyone who would like to share something with me. But Councilwoman Larson, what, go ahead, what would you like to?
I wanted to find out if you've heard anything from Assistant Director Butler about the survey, how we talked at the last housing committee meeting about it being not user-friendly for people that have eye-hand coordination problems like myself. And have you heard anything back about that?
With regard to the usability, I have not, but with regard to someone maybe noticing an inaccuracy on the report, I was told that they could reach out to the city. The city will note that that difference, but it sounds like there is not going to be a way for folks to be able to update the data that's publicly facing.
Of course, are they supposed to go to the Mayor's Action Center to make that inquiry, or?
I have to go back and learn which address I was asked to direct people to, because
Okay.
at the moment, it's not dawning on me.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
I could make a comment to that.
Yep.
I found that survey very unuser friendly and I couldn't find it on the website. I had to have someone that I asked how they found it because they made comments about it at a city council meeting. And so I sent an email to the Mayor's Action Center and asked if it could be made more user friendly. And I didn't hear anything. So I made that request. I was very curious because, you know, we all have houses that we're keeping an eye on and wondering if they're ever gonna get fixed.
Before you leave,
Last comment goes to
I just
Reggie.
want to say one
Yeah.
thing. You remember back in the days, the school district or the schools used to have realtor days, and you would go over to Roxborough or Noble or Garrity or whatever. They would talk about the community, the houses.
Right.
Remember that? That was another way to promote us.
Yep.
And the first time home buyer seminars that we used to hold.
Right. I've been a realtor since
Seminars.
1983 and a broker since I've been in business for almost 40-something years.
Yeah, me
Long
too.
stuff. So I'm just saying, that was a way to promote.
We used to have seminars for home buying seminars.
For the
They would
realtor.
reach out to all the renters in the area and they said, you know, you're living here now, I'm sure you love it and you would love to be a homeowner, come find out how you can do that. We don't have that anymore. And we used to have landlord seminars that would give them updates on the fair housing laws and any changes and things that they should pay attention to. We don't have those anymore. So we have to make up these deficiencies.
Well, thank you again for joining us. And with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 5:58 PM.